So I just want to say something before I kind of do my little thing that I say at first. If you'll notice, I got affiliate. This is the first stream that I have affiliate turned on my Twitch channel. So you'll see a bunch of new and different things on the channel. I'm probably going to spend some more time on the Thursday stream actually diving into that and explaining it because I'm still learning it all myself. I don't really know what it all means, but that's something that you guys are going to see on the Twitch channel going forward. And with that being said, this is our next episode of Interstage Window, and with me today, as usual, is Landon.
It is the omniscient voice from the beyond. I don't know. That's what we're going with today.
Yes.
How are you doing, Karen?
Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm really excited about the affiliate thing. It was kind of a surprise. I really thought I wasn't going to unlock it until next week. Like I even showed the stats on Thursday night on stream. Like I shouldn't have unlocked it until next Thursday. So it was really weird to see that. They gave it to me like a week early. Like I only had the 6 streams, not the 7, but they gave it to me anyway. So whatever. Cool. Thanks,
They
Twitch.
predicted where you were going.
I guess they were so sure I was going to unlock it next week that they went ahead and gave it to me this week. So that is what it is. That is what it is. But what are we talking about today? What's our topic that we're going into today?
Today we're going to be talking about inspiration,
Ooh.
how to find it, where to go, what to do if you don't have it, and different tools that you can use to make sure that you are staying inspired to continue to write what you're writing.
Okay, I like it. That's one of the biggest challenges, right? That's one of the biggest challenges when it comes to writing is trying to figure out like what you want to write. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Snow, for subscribing. That was not expected. Thank you. You are my first subscriber. Holy shit. Wow. And yeah, and Snow just followed me on Thursday, like just the other day. So, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Oh, look at that. You got a little badge. I haven't designed anything, by the way. I haven't designed any of this. It's all still like 90% the defaults. So yeah, I'll work on that. Now that I've got a subscriber, I guess I really kind of freaking have to. So thank you again.
I like the little thing that came up also that said that she subscribed. It was really aesthetically pleasing.
Oh, thank you.
Really fun.
That was actually the sound I put on there, but the visual is one of the Twitch ones that like comes with it. So I need to actually hire an artist to like redesign all my shit because everything on here is just the stuff that Twitch gives you, which that's not ideal, right? So I need to work on that. But Snow,
Well,
by
now
the
you have
way, yeah, but Snow, by the way, if you are in my Discord server, and if you're not, there's a link down below. Please DM me so that I can get you into my patron chat. I feel like if you're subscribing to my Twitch, like you should be part of the patron chat too. Like you should. That makes sense to me. So, Snow, if you're interested, hit me up on Discord, and I'll make sure that I fix that for you in my server.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, we were talking about inspiration, and that's what the theme of the day is going to be today.
Yes. I'm so excited for this. Okay, yeah. So what I was saying was I feel like this is something that is a regular and normal struggle when it comes to anything creative. So like this
Yeah.
counts for role play, any kind of writing, or like anything where you're doing something creative, like finding inspiration. That's like the step one, right? The proverbial staring at the blank page. Like, and a lot of times that is the hardest freaking part.
Yep, it is. I know that when we talk about writing, where I know, like for me at least, I'm going to talk a lot about role play, but also a lot about personal writing
Yeah.
and anywhere from poetry to novels, and how getting stuck is part of the process, and it's completely normal. Everyone does it. People can't just continually spurt out new stuff. That you are going to eventually get stuck.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Lunar, I put a bunch of our regulars as VIPs. Something was weird with my graphics, so I'm just fixing that real quick. Took a bunch of the regulars that are in the stream and made y'all VIPs. So I hope that's fun. I don't really know what the VIP does, but enjoy it.
I very quickly want to give a apology, because apparently my cats are on catnip right now. They're not, don't know where they got it, but they're acting crazy. So if you hear running or meowing in the background, just know it's Sherlock wanting attention, because he's literally running up and down my apartment currently.
Meow.
So,
Hi, Sherlock.
People are like, "What's that weird background sound?" It's me. I'm so sorry.
Well, if I hear him meow, just know I will be compelled to meow back. That is
Do
what I
it.
do when it comes. Oh my gosh, thank you, Lunar. Y'all don't have to subscribe. I mean, thank you so freaking much for subscribing, but like it's not you don't have to. But thank you, Lunar. DM me so I don't forget to get you into my patron chat on the Discord. Thank you guys so freaking much. Oh my god. Um, so I'm just a little overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. Anyways, back on
We
freaking topic.
support you. You're great.
Thank
That
you
is
so
what people
much.
are saying and doing. Is that
Thank
they're
you
like,
so
we really
much.
love that you're providing content to make us entertained.
Well, thank you so much. I hope it's educational too. I mean, that's the goal, right? The entertaining is the fun part, but the goal is to be educational. So I hope that we're
Are we
doing a lot of that.
we're supposed to be entertaining? I thought that this was supposed to be just like straight boring lecture from college.
Oh my
Whoops.
god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Thoughts on that, but I'm not gonna go off on a tangent on that. Okay, well, actually, let's get. This was such a little tangent at the beginning, but let's do favorite things, right? I think we've explained what the topic's
Yeah.
going to be. So favorite things. Okay.
What's your favorite thing?
So my favorite thing this week was I watched the entire, I think it's 6 or 7 seasons run of Venture Bros. Venture Brothers was a cartoon on Adult Swim, back when Adult Swim kind of got started, and I was like so obsessed with it. It was so good, but it's really just made by these two guys, right? Like it's really just these two guys, and they're really the everything. I mean, of course they have a staff and stuff, but it's really just those two. And so it takes them forever to make the show. So after season 2, there was a huge hiatus, and I just kind of totally forgot about it. And then I heard recently, like a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was like 2 weeks ago now, that it was canceled and it wasn't coming back anymore. And I was like, oh shoot, I remember that show. It was really freaking good. And so I decided, well, I need to binge it all. I need to see it all. And I have to say that like after the first 2 seasons that I had actually watched previously, it gets even better, which is just so wonderful. And to give all a rundown of what the show's about, it's a cartoon, right? It's a cartoon that was on Adult Swim, and it's basically a parody of Saturday morning cartoons. It's like Saturday morning cartoon world logic, but what that would actually mean for like how it would affect the people that were like going on these constant adventures and things like that, right? But what it's really about, because I like to talk about the theme. I like to talk about the theme. But what it's really about is it's about how patriarchy and masculinity hurts men in a particular way. Like that's really what it's about. And it's so funny that
Oh.
because it was canceled, right? A bunch of people that were fans of the show started making YouTube videos on it. So like Shannon Strucci, look her up if you don't follow her. She's great, wonderful. She is she made a video on Venture Bros, and basically her video is showing that part of it, like it's explaining the theme and showing it and things like that. And she got a lot of pushback. She got a lot of freaking pushback from people saying, that's not what it was about, and that she was thinking too hard and da 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 da. And I'm just like, what show were you watching? What show are you watching? Because that's the whole thing. Like, the whole thing is about how this father who was a boy adventurer then has sons and basically makes them be boy adventurers too, even though he hated it when he was a kid. So, like, that's what it's about. So yeah. Lunar, the topic is inspiration. That's what we're going to get into today. So this was my favorite thing, and I think it kind of ties into what we're going to talk about today, because to me the most interesting part of a piece of media is always like the theme of it and what that theme means for that piece of media and how that plays out. Like that's always the most interesting part to me, which is why every time I mention like a show or something like that is my favorite thing, I'm always talking about like what it's really saying. So
Well,
that
and like I think it's also important to talk of like in terms of the Adventure Bros stuff and what she was saying as far as like what show are you watching, is that the theme and the messaging behind art is in the eye of the consumer.
Oh yeah.
So even if it was completely accidental, even though it's sounding like it's not,
I don't think it
that was
was.
the theme of the show. But hypothetically, if it was accidental that this happened to be a theme of the show, then awesome. it's still a theme of the show.
Yep, I
Whether
agree.
the artist intended it or not, if someone watched the show and got that theme from it, it's a theme of the show.
Yeah, so long as you can support what you're saying the theme is, it's a valid theme. Like a good example
Yeah.
of that, I think, is like Tolkien talks about in a lot of his like personal writings about how he hates allegory. But like it's really hard to look at Lord of the Rings and not be like, this is obviously an allegory for like the world wars that he went through, you know, like it's clearly influenced by that. I mean, it's not an exact allegory because he didn't set out to try to write one, but it still is. um
Well,
so yeah, good
that's
point.
part of, I think that's also part of creating art. I personally, as a writer, think it's impossible to not take stuff from the context of your life,
Oh
right? That
yeah.
we do, even if we're writing about things that we don't know, we do base off of things that we do know.
Yep.
And so we're going to find familiar tropes and familiar themes and things that are in our everyday lives to have in our writing, whether we're aware of it or not.
Yep. Absolutely.
So anyway, that sounds like a really fun favorites things. I'm sorry that the show got canceled, but I'm glad that it inspired you to rewatch it.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, everything ends, right? So it is what it is, and it wasn't like I was actively watching it anyway because it kept taking hiatuses over and over. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it was good. It was good to sit down and binge it. What's your favorite thing this week, Landon?
So my favorite thing, y'all are gonna thank me for,
Uh-oh.
because I discovered the perfect fall Starbucks drink. And by discovered, I mean I saw it on TikTok. So really, I did nothing, but am relaying it to you guys. Um,
Oh. What is it?
it is a venti, or any size, I guess, iced chai latte with pumpkin cold foam. And
Okay.
when I say it is fall in a cup, I mean it is fall in a cup. It has all the warm, cinnamony flavors, but doesn't go so over on the pumpkin that you're like drinking a pumpkin pie. But it has like all that warm fall love that I just wraps you up, but it's also nice and cool, so you can still pretend that it's summer, and it's great. It's the best thing ever. Get it. Everyone needs to get it.
That sounds freaking amazing. Pumpkin
Yeah.
cold foam. It would never occur to me to add that to a drink, but that sounds freaking delicious. And hey,
And I think
Thumper, thank you so much for joining us today.
that this is the first year that they have like different flavored cold foam, because I think, okay, for context, I used to work at a Starbucks, and I still have a lot of friends who work at Starbucks, so like I'm in the know, right? But not really. But I have way too much invested in Starbucks because all of my friends are invested in Starbucks.
Oh my gosh.
So basically, last year was the first year that they came out with like the cold foam, which is a topper on top of like cold brews that is basically almost whipped cream. And this year
Oh,
is the flavoring that they do it. So it's basically pumpkin whipped cream, but not quite as like thick. It's just
okay.
kind of like foamy stuff that's on top of like drinks that we like. All that foam flavor basically put on top of a cold drink. It's
Okay.
delicious.
Is it still like super sweet like whipped cream or not really?
It is on, well, because it has the pumpkin flavoring in it, so it's going to be sweet because the pumpkin flavoring is sweetened. So
Oh.
it is sweetened. But they do have cold foam that is not sweet. It's just not the pumpkin cold foam.
Okay, okay. So the pumpkin flavoring that they use has some sweetener in it, but if you got just like regular like extra cold foam on your drink, like it's not necessarily
Yeah.
going to make it sweeter.
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
So yeah, it's pretty great. Everyone needs to try it. It's a very sweet drink. But I'm full of sugar and sweet. So I
Well,
need more of that in my life.
of course,
Um,
whenever the it was PSL season started, you know, at the fall, we had to go to Starbucks, but I haven't been back since. You know, when I'm not like going to work every day, there's not as much incentive to like go to Starbucks. So I might have to make a particular trip to try something with
yeah,
this pumpkin cold foam because that sounds so
yeah.
intriguing to me.
My mom, because my mom is a big Starbucks fan. That's where I got it. And even more so, she loves chai lattes. I don't really love chai lattes, but when I was trying this, I was like, okay, this is great. And so my mom tried it, and then she's like, yeah, put put the like cinnamon dolce, which is like a cinnamon flavor into it
Oh, I
too.
love
It adds
those.
sweetener, but it makes it taste like a snickerdoodle, apparently.
Oh my
So I'm like,
gosh.
okay, good to know. So I think that everyone needs to thank me for this information that I've spread to all of you guys because it really is truly important.
Well, definitely
Uh,
thank you from me.
and I don't have any money invested in Starbucks because I promise this isn't sponsored. But like, come on, Starbucks, if you want to hit me up and give me a few of these free things, I'll totally take
Starbucks sponsor me.
it.
Sponsor Interstage Window.
So that was my favorite thing of this week.
I love it.
Uh,
What a good favorite thing.
yeah, there were several needed this week because it's been a very interesting week. So, but more on that for later streams.
Okay, fair enough. All right, all right. Oh,
We'll
I'm so
dive in.
I don't remember if I said it, but hey, Thumper, I saw you in there. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you can see, some things have changed on the channel. But I marked you as one of the VIPs since you show up to a lot of these streams. I only got 10 slots, but I picked 10 people, so hopefully some more of our regulars will come in here and see that.
Woohoo!
All right. So, do we want to get started on the topic then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. Inspiration.
Well, I think that the thing with inspiration is that it's about starting, right? Like when we think of getting inspired, we often think about starting something. We want to be inspired to start writing a poem or start writing a character or that we have this idea in our head. So I think that like us taking our time, and even though we've talked about how to get started before, but us taking our time and how inspiration plays into getting started would be a good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a video that I've made on inspiration, and I feel so. I want to kind of make this point first because I feel like it's the most important thing that I see people getting confused on when it comes to inspiration. I think there's a lot of people out there that have this belief that inspiration is kind of like the Greek idea of a muse, that like the gods are just going to come down and bless you with inspiration, and then you're going to know exactly what to write and how to write it, and everything is going to just play out like that, and it's not work and it's not effort. But that's not the reality. The reality is inspiration is work and it is effort. So it's Thumper saying, let's start a thing. Let's start. I'm not sorry. There's a typo, and I'm not sure what you meant to say. But I think my executive dysfunction is what I kind of zeroed in on. So yeah, when it comes to being inspired, like you have to start to put in that work. So if you're not healthy, then it's going to be so much freaking harder, right? Um, so I guess that's really what I wanted to say first is like finding that inspiration. It doesn't just come to you. Like you have to get put things out into the world to get things back.
Yeah, I think that that idea started because sometimes it can feel that way, right?
Yeah.
There are times that I've certainly been in the middle of something and I've been like, oh my God, I can write a poem about this, or I can write something about this, right? That's how a lot of my writing happens, is that I will use what I am feeling and then contribute it to my writing.
Yes.
Um, and it can feel, if you're not thinking about it on a higher level, it can feel very much like, oh, I was just struck with this idea and the words came flowing and now I have this thing. Um, but you have to think about, okay, but where did you have to get, and what had to happen to me to get to that level?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when you're looking and working to find inspiration, you have to think of all of those things. So a lot of the time, some of that stuff is happening unconsciously that makes us think that inspiration just strikes us. But you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. It doesn't. Things happen before that moment. And if you want to recreate moments like that, you have to think about what happens before and get to that level.
Yeah, I think it does feel like that, especially when you're like newer to doing creative work. The first few times, I think that it feels a lot like that because people are naturally creative. Like it's not like that there's people that are good at creativity and people that are bad at creativity. I believe creativity is just something that humans do. Like it's just something that we do whenever, our other needs are taken care of, right? It's something that our brain does naturally. So that's why sometimes I think like it feels like it just happens, because if everything else is taken care of and you're good to go, then yeah, your brain will just naturally do it. But there's other things that you can do to kind of like make your brain do that when it's in a state where it doesn't necessarily want to.
Absolutely. It's just a lot more work.
Yes.
Or
It is.
not much more work, because I think even before you're putting work into it, you're just not consciously aware that you're putting work into it.
Yes.
There's a lot more intention behind it. You're
Mhm.
intentionally doing things in order to be inspired.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. And
Um,
I think that for a lot of people, like what they'll do when they want to be inspired is they'll just like open up a document or whatever program they're using. They'll open up Photoshop, whatever, right? And they'll just kind of stare at the blank screen as if that's going to do anything. And that doesn't do
what,
anything, but
what do you
for
mean
me
just
make me frustrated.
what do you mean just blinking at a blank page? Doesn't inspire. It like causes so much emotion. Sure, those emotions are anxiety, fear, failure, but isn't that inspiring in itself?
Oh my god. No.
Oh,
Like
I've been doing it wrong this whole time.
you have to actually click buttons. You have to actually put words on the page, right? Like
Yes.
you have to actually do things. You can't just stare at the blank page and expect the gods to bless you. They're not going to. That's not how it works.
Gosh darn it.
I know, right?
All right. I suppose we can move on then and figure out how it does work.
Okay. So how does it work? Like what's your take on that?
I think what you said, you had a note in here that you are naturally creative, right? That you are naturally looking for something to create. If you are struck by this thing to want to make art, then you have already done the first step of
Yeah,
getting inspired. You've
absolutely.
opened yourself up to this idea of, oh, I can do this. I can create art. Um, I think another level of that is that, for me at least, I worry that I'm going to get stuck again. Like,
Mm,
I have this predisposed idea in my head that I'm already expecting failure, quote unquote, if
mhm.
being stuck is considered failing, which it shouldn't, and we'll talk about later on. Um, but I have like this thing in my head that's going to be like, but if you start, you'll just get stuck again eventually, and it still won't be finished. So why do the work?
Oh, so it's kind of like kind of it's kind of like this thing that your brain is doing to try to save you from that failure feeling, right? So it's saving you from this failure feeling that's really hard to deal with by saying, well, we're not even going to start in the first place, and then you can't feel that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's really tough because I think that that's something that a lot of us struggle with, and we talked about in a previous stream like our experiences with the education system, but I think that we're taught from a very early age that failure is some kind of horrible thing that's going to mark us as failures, like it's like a personality trait, and it's but that's not true, right? Like that's not true, and I know we talked about that in that stream, but I do think we're taught from a very early age that failure is this kind of like full stop thing that once you achieve it you are a failure and you can't fix that.
Oof.
Yeah.
um, yep.
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot to unpack there, right? But I think when it comes to inspiration, maybe a lot of what's happening is those same ways that we've been screwed up by the way that we measure ourselves. So maybe something that we can say to people that are really struggling a lot with trying to find that inspiration is that if you're struggling to start because of fears and anxieties, like know that there's no grade. Like there's no grade for creative work. There's no one to disappoint, right? Like if we're being creative, we should first be creative for ourselves and everyone else is secondary to that.
I think I agree with what you are saying on the big picture. I disagree on some of the small picture things.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
I think that if you're thinking, it matters your intention of your writing, right?
Yeah.
If you are writing because you want to write a novel, you hope that that novel will be read. And if you want other people to be reading that novel, you want other people to like that novel.
Yeah.
So there is this expectation that there will be a pass or fail grade, that people will either like it or they will not like it. So I think that having some of that fear of like getting locked into like, oh my god, what if this sucks, I think is genuine and totally valid.
Oh yeah.
And I used to, and still do sometimes, have that like fear in my gut that I'm like, god, this doesn't sound good. But here's the thing, when you're first writing, especially if we're talking about big projects, you're gonna have so many drafts of that project that it even if it was amazing when you wrote it out the first time, it will not look like that at the end.
Yeah, there's no way.
There's just no way. Things are going to change. So no one is expecting you to like what you are writing now, what you are working on now will never be seen by anybody but you.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah. And you can even relate that down to RP as well, especially if you're working on a big, huge plot line or something like that that's just giving you pause to sit there and be like, this first draft, there's no pressure there because it might not be seen by anybody but yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so you gotta give yourself a little bit of break if you have those feelings being valid, but at the same time being like, that's a valid feeling, but either way, that's not how this process works.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to role play, like what gives me a lot of comfort is knowing that nobody's judging me by one individual post, right? Like, at least I hope not. And if they are, they're probably not the kind of person I want to role play with anyway. But
I pick one post every month to decide to judge you on whether I like you or not. So that's what I do. It happens on the 17th of every month. I just randomly pick.
What about all those months I didn't post on the 17th? What happens then?
You're shit out of luck.
God damn it. But yeah, like when it comes to roleplay, I think each individual post, like to relate it back to that, each individual post really doesn't matter. Like nobody cares about this post or that post. I don't think. I think what most people really care about is like the overall roleplay experience with you, because not every post is going to be gold, right? Like that's freaking impossible. That's like too much pressure to put on yourself. But you can overall like have a good roleplay experience. And I think also when it comes to roleplay is like for a lot of us, it is, you know, it's very improvisational, right? It is a series of first drafts that we typically don't go back and fix and fix and fix. Like when I think about creative projects I do for work, right? When I think about like trainings I'm building, it gets like minimum 4 drafts before, you know, it gets released. Minimum. And like roleplay doesn't do that, obviously. But I do think that we can kind of think of it in the same way as like when I'm putting together my first draft and I'm just like, whatever, fuck it. It doesn't really matter. It's the first draft. In the sense of like, no one cares about one individual post. What they care about is the consistency over time.
Yep. And I think that's like the consistency over time. Also, other things that you bring to the table too,
Yeah.
as far as RP. Like, let's be honest, sometimes RPers are RPing with each other not just because of their love for how the other person writes. It could be for the ideas that the other person comes up with.
Mm-hmm.
It could be just for the relationship itself too. Like you can't also assume why this person is writing with you.
Yeah.
I think that there is a good chance that it is probably your writing. But at the same time, that's not the whole picture.
Yeah.
Like you were saying.
Yeah.
I also think it is, and it's something that we're going to talk about, especially when we talk about writing strategies to get inspired. But that first draft really should just be literally everything, right? And this might be more akin to how I write versus how other people write. But I recognize that I'll get halfway through a scene and it will go in the complete opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's solo writing that I originally outlined. And if I'm so concerned on making every single thing perfect and it sound like, you know, something that's worthy of some sort of prize, then I don't give myself the freedom to be able to have that creativity or even have that inspiration hit you, right?
Mm.
Like we're talking about how inspiration sometimes feels like it's been given to the gods. Sometimes it does feel that way when I'm halfway through a scene and I go, you know what's a better idea than this? This one.
Oh my God,
And
that happens to me all the time in solo writing.
yeah,
All the freaking time.
absolutely. And you know what? It's happened in RP writing too, where I'll sit there and I'll be like, oh, I've been planning out this thread for in my head and how characters are going to react. And then I get to one moment and I'm like, you know what actually would be better?
Mm-hmm.
This thing.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the best scenes that I've ever written with partners have come out from moments like that. And then also some of the biggest mistakes have also come out from that. Where it's like, oh, that didn't land exactly how I thought it would. But if I'm concerned about making every single thing perfect, especially on that first draft, I am not opening myself up to a moment like that.
Yep.
Because then I will doubt everything that comes to mind and I will stifle myself creativity, like on a creativity level.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, a big appeal of roleplay is the kind of like emergent storytelling elements of it where things don't always do exactly what you expected them to do. And I think when you aren't like leaving yourself room to be creative and to try to find that inspiration, you kind of cut that emergent, storytelling out of the process, which is like a huge part. Like that's a huge part of both role playing and also a huge part of when you're doing, your first or maybe even second draft of some solo writing that you're working on.
Yeah, I agree with you that is, let yourself have that.
Yeah.
Stop stifling your creativity just because you're scared of what might happen if you let it loose.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think in the end, that's kind of what we're doing, right? We're sitting there and being like, if I take risks, then something might happen. And your brain is designed to do that, which is one of the confusing things about being a creative, is that your brain, while it is extremely creative in itself, isn't built to be creative. So
It's built to keep you alive. It's built to
it's
make you
built to keep
survive.
you alive and built to
Yeah.
keep you safe. So
Yeah.
even if you are like imagining these things that are completely fictional and everything like that, your brain is still on its most base level trying to cause you the least amount of stress and the safest option possible. So it is sitting there and being like, don't take risks, even though those risks are fictional, or
Yep.
even though those risks might never happen. Don't do it because it will kill you. And like it's like, well, actually, if I write this word instead of another word, it's not gonna kill me, brain. I promise.
But it's hard. It can be really hard to convince
Oh,
yourself of that sometimes. It really can.
absolutely.
You have to practice to some extent. Like you have to practice yourself taking risks, right? Like I think when it comes to like trying to be more creative, in addition to what we've said so far, I think another big point that I want to make is that the biggest way to stay creative is to keep creating. Like it feeds itself.
Yeah.
It feeds itself.
And I know that we will definitely talk about that in depth towards the like later half of this stream because that is so important.
Mm-hmm.
That in order to be creative, you just got to keep going.
Yeah,
Um,
you really do.
create the right amount to keep going, but not to burn out.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing, Thumper. I kind of disagree with you because I'm not sure that you can burn out.
Well, I think you can. I think you
Matters your
can.
definition of burnout.
See, I think you can burn out, but I don't think that creating too much is what causes burnout. I think that creating more than creating things that you're not really inspired to create can cause burnout. Like, for example, the way that I tend to experience burnout is creating stuff for work, because I am paid to create stuff at work, which means I am compelled to do so whether I'm enjoying the project or not, right? Like I have to make the stuff they ask for regardless of whether I care about it or not. Like I have to figure out how to make myself care when I don't really, because I'm getting paid, right? Like there's that coercive element there of if I stop creating, they'll stop paying me, and then I
Yep.
won't be able to eat, right? So I
So
think
Rain, I really do need to stay safe on this one.
yeah, so when it comes to like being creative at work, I definitely have felt burnout before, but it's not from creating too much like in volume. It's from going too long, having project after project that I'm not that into, right? And I think when we're talking about it in role play, like everything that you're doing in role play, you should hopefully be into. Like if you're doing a lot of role plays that you're not super into, like that's something that I would want to dig into, because even though it's fine to sometimes do role plays you're not super into, like as a mod and as an admin I absolutely do. I think that's part of what I signed up for with being the person that created the role play, is sometimes I'm
Yeah.
going to have to do role play with people I don't want to role play with. Sometimes I'm going to have to do plots I'm not that interested in, right? But hopefully the balance is not such that I have so many of those that I get burnt out, right? And if that's happening to you, then my kind of comment to that would be is what kind of plots would you be interested in? How can we get more of those in the mix?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that is what I meant by saying that burnout is possible, but I don't think burnout by just the act of creating itself is possible. The upkeep is where you're going to get the burnout. The having to do stuff that you don't want to do is where you're going to have to get the burnout. And as Thumper said, I sometimes start too much stuff and have like 10 things, and I'm just overwhelm myself too
Mm-hmm.
much.
So like you
That's where you're going
guess
to get
wrong.
burnout.
Like you guess wrong at
Um,
how much time you really have to dedicate to roleplay, which that absolutely happens, and you can feel burnout from that.
Absolutely. Frankly, if you put yourself in panic mode, which is what doing too much stuff and then taking on more stuff does to your brain, and that's not a call out to you, Thumper, that's a call out to me because I am the queen of it.
I didn't
As
say it, you
everyone
did.
knows. Every time I say a comment about that, that's your response, and that's how you know I know that I'm right. Is that you're just like,
I love you, but there's a reason that when I asked, my because I asked like my a few friends, like not just Landon, basically who wanted to do this stream with me, and the only person that really gave me a dedicated yes was Landon. Everybody else was like, sure, yeah, but it was like not a committal yes. It was like a yeah, maybe kind of yes. Dang it, I keep hitting that one. But yeah, Landon was the only one to say absolutely yes. You know who's also the busiest of the friend group, the close friend group that I asked? Landon.
not me. I don't know what you're talking about.
But I think that's totally possible, right? Like it's
Yeah,
totally possible to
exactly.
burn yourself out because you misestimate how much time you have to dedicate to a task.
Absolutely. And then also like you put yourself in panic mode. Like it's also how much time do you have dedicated to it, and then disappointing yourself. But it's also this, you trigger your brain to go in fight or flight, and
Mm-hmm.
no one can create when you are in fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to then calm yourself down by either not doing enough stuff or not following through this commitments, getting stuff off your plate, or just never coming down from fight or flight.
That's not ideal. That won't have
No,
long-term consequences.
when do I graduate again?
Oh God.
But yes, basically that's that. I do believe 100% you could be burnt out from that because you're just like in panic mode and then you can't create from panic mode.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just if you really are in a mood where you just want to create, especially if you've been blocked for such a long time that you just want to create, then I sit there and I go, start as many projects as you want. Do what you want. Follow with your pen where you go. Write what you want, how you want to do it, when you want to do it. Let that creativity inspire you, because it will just continue to inspire you and you will eventually settle. Just like anyone who wants freedom will eventually settle at some point.
Yeah, and I think that it's also okay if you do that, like if that's your mode for when you get
Yeah.
inspired, that if you start too many projects, it's okay to drop a few projects. Like you just because you started something doesn't mean you have to finish it. It's
Yeah.
so it's okay. It's okay to be like, I started too many things. I need to drop one of these.
I really hate this narrative. And I think it's a narrative that we as writers put on ourselves. But I really hate this narrative of like the unfinished work and how there needs to be shame that you have 10,000 projects that you've started and never finished.
Yeah.
The reality is that that's part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of those things, just like, I mean, not to extend the metaphor, but just kind of like dating, each one of those opportunities taught you something. Each one of those projects taught you something. And you lost reason and inspiration and want and drive to do it for one reason or another. Um, and that in itself might have taught you something else too. And also, unlike dating, there's no reason why you can't go back to said project 10 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
if you really do love it. Summer
Absolutely.
says, just because you started something doesn't mean you have to finish it. What is this hearsay you speak? Yeah, no, I mean, it is 100% true. You do not, I am the queen of not finishing things. So this might be me just trying to let myself off the hook. But, but you don't have to finish things. There is an okay time to be able to just walk away from things.
Yeah, it's
I
fine.
mean,
Like it's really not that big of a
yeah.
deal. And I think that if we cut ourselves a little bit of slack and don't treat role play and creative work as like as if it's the same as like going to school or the same as wage labor that we do to survive or things like that, it can be really freeing. But we spend so much time doing wage labor like at work. We spend so much time going to school for a grade, things of that nature, that it's very easy to get into that mindset and start applying those types of ideals to everything that we do. And I do think that really blocks inspiration in a lot of ways.
I also don't want to ignore the fact that having that option to be able to just not finish things is a lot more complicated when it comes to role play and
Yes.
partner writing.
Yes.
When you're solo writing, no one needs to know your word folders, right? No one needs to see how many projects that you have started and stopped. Unless you want to self-admit that, no one needs to know. In RP, you can, unless you have some really understanding friends, it can be a really quick way to burn bridges.
Yeah, they'd have to be mega understanding if you're doing that to them all the time.
100%, and that's not a reason not to do it too.
Hmm.
Because and we in ways do it. Like, let's be honest, how many RPs have we started that we haven't really quote unquote finished? We try to wrap up storylines, but there are certainly RPs that we haven't finished
Oh yeah.
because like we can imagine the stories going in other places and have, but we don't have 20 years to write out those stories.
Yep.
And we get bored. And so we as an RP decide to do that. And you as a partner can decide that this is a good place to wrap up. But you do have another person's feelings and thoughts to account to when you're partner writing, that you can't just be like, and scene, even though you're halfway through the scene. You
Yep.
plot it out for the next 6 months.
Yep. That's
So
absolutely true. So I think when it comes to trying to figure that out for role play and partner writing, like really the key is having good communication with your partner. Like you have to have built up that trust already before you
yeah.
can just be like, I'm bored, sorry, let's end it. And I think that in that way, and that's part of why I say, like, when it comes to role play, sometimes you are going to do role plays that you're not super invested in, but there should be a balance, right? Like if you're getting bored of something and the answer for your situation is not to end it for some reason, then what you should be doing is thinking about what are other creative things that I can do that can make me feel fulfilled, so that I'm not just doing this one boring thing that I don't like.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I feel like we've talked a lot about kind of like some of the things that are going into the background of like of like why some of this happens. Like is there more points on that, or should we get into like some of the actual techniques to try to fix some of this shit?
Did you wanna discuss the idea of copying?
Oh, yeah, sure. That's a good
Um
point. That's a good point.
because that kind of just ties into this, where it's like some people are just really scared um of like starting, and then some people are just really scared that they're copying and or stealing someone else's idea.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely something that I've seen that causes people to like not be creative. Like their creativity will get stifled because they get nervous of copying. And I made a video on this about how like certain people get in this trap where they're so concerned with being unique that they end up not creating, and that is definitely a really dangerous thing that can stifle inspiration. So you can watch the video for like my full like explanation of kind of why that happens and my thoughts on that. But in relation to inspiration specifically, I feel like it's not it's not possible. It's not possible to create something brand new. And
Yep.
so I just don't think it benefits you to like spend time worrying about that. Like just make it. And if it turns out that you accidentally copied, like so what? Everything's a copy. Like the most popular media company right now is Disney. And pretty much everything they have made is a copy. Like
It
almost none
steal,
of it is original.
yeah, they steal from the Grimm fairy tales, who actually stole from local fairy tales,
Exactly.
who stole
Exactly.
from folklores. Like,
Yeah. Copies of
and
copies.
and Thumper said in the chat, me literally taking stuff all the time. Wait, people feel bad about this, and I think that it's not like this like idea of. I think that there's also a separation between like fan fiction or borrowing stuff, but there is this sense of, especially when it comes to world building, where you can sit there and be like, oh God, this particular thing is too close to the Lord of the Rings ring wraiths, or this mythological creature. I'm trying to invent my own mythology, but this is too close to this mythology, and it can get overwhelming if you are trying to create something unique. But I think, like Karen said, it's very important to just remember nothing is unique.
Yeah, and I think what happens to a lot of people is they have put a value judgment on uniqueness, and they feel like that if that like derivative being doing something derivative is a bad thing. And I think that for fandom role players, so Thumper, maybe this will speak to you because I know you've done a lot of fandom stuff, that idea is not in there nearly as much because like what we're doing is inherently derivative in fandom. But for a lot of
Yeah.
people that are doing mostly original stuff, they are scared of being seen as derivative, and they feel like that's like a bad thing, and and so they spend a bunch of time trying to be unique, and then they end up creating nothing, and they wonder why they can't come up with the next big idea, and it's like because that's just not how creativity works. The way that you actually make something new is by taking a bunch of things that have all happened before and recombining them in a new way. But the only way you're going to do that is if you are constantly creating and thinking creatively and things like that. And that means you're going to make a bunch of copies before you make the next, genre breaking, unique thing.
Yeah. And I think something that helps with that, because I find, at least for me, I find that I have this problem most when it comes to world building.
Mm-hmm.
Um you I think that there is this misconception, at least that was told to me, that you are supposed to have the world figured out before you start writing the book, right? That you're
Oh,
supposed to have this world already perfectly done. The reality is that no, because how are you supposed to know what's supposed to be happening inside your world if you haven't told the story yet? And that
mm-hmm.
you can change the world building. So I think that if you can remember that when you are creating a world, that it can look just like another world, and that's okay because it's going to change to better develop your story, and that
Yeah.
your world needs to change about your story, and you're not the story to fit the world. I
Yeah.
think if we're taking it from that point of view, then as long as you have, at the end, the world is going to look completely different than it did in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And what Thumper's saying is true. The story informs the world, like 100%. And I don't know where this idea comes from because I had this wrong idea too when I was like a very young writer, like in middle school and early high school. Like it wasn't until I started looking more into like literary analysis and things like that I realized like this idea was like really stupid. But I don't know like where I got this from. I don't know where I got
Well,
this from. Like I guess I assumed authors like that had really complicated worlds knew anything and everything about their world, but like looking back on it now, that's so obviously not true.
I think it comes from the fact that our world, how we see it and live in it, is stagnant.
Mm.
right? It is definite and defined, and therefore that world should be. And it's easier to write a story playing within the rules than breaking the rules, because we've been taught that rules are not supposed to be broken.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things, and how are you scared that you're going to break the rules if you don't know what the rules are, so you need to create the rules. And creating the rules means creating the world. And it just kind of plays into this thing that there's supposed to be a structure because we've built a world built on structure.
Mm.
So I think that that's part of where it comes from. And it's one of those things that writers you just got to get over that in order
Mm-hmm.
to create, especially if you're talking fantasy or you're going to create a world that is different from our own, you just need to get over it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and you know what? Frankly, copying isn't that bad as long as you acknowledge that you're doing it and not trying to play it off that you're not
Mm-hmm.
doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, like
and
don't tell me you didn't trace when you clearly traced, you know?
yeah, exactly. Don't sit there and be like, "Oh, I wasn't inspired by this thing," when it's like clearly you were.
Yeah,
And
like it.
authors, especially some authors that we don't like to talk about, are really, really bad at that. They'll just be like, "I didn't steal this idea." And it's like, no, clearly you did.
Like impossible. Yeah. Yeah, use
Oh yeah,
references.
and then,
References are good. Like use them.
absolutely,
Don't try to draw from
absolutely.
memory. That's silly.
And even then, like when you're using references, think, if you're writing a novel, thank the person that you stole the references from.
Yeah,
Like,
like a
or
really
just
good
like acknowledge it.
Yeah, like a really good example that I always think of when I think of this type of thing is Dungeons and Dragons. So in the original Dungeons and Dragons, there's this, like the very first edition, right? There's this acknowledgments page that explains all of the different places they got their references from, because it really is an amalgamation of a lot of, very common fantasy tropes, right? But you know what's strangely missing? That is a very obvious reference in Dungeons and Dragons. They don't say that they were inspired by Lord of the Rings, even though they obviously clearly
Yep.
must have been. And it's that always struck me as so like, what?
It's
What?
because, yep.
Oh my gosh, I love this. Catch my novel's dedication page. Thank you, She Shall Not Be Named, for inspiring me with such rage to fix what was broken that I wrote this book. Oh, I love it. I do hope
Oh,
for that. I do hope for that one day. Some
that will
wizarding
happen one day.
with some Wizarding World books that fix the BS.
Yep. Or just in general. Also, I'm okay. That this is a small tangent, but I deserve it.
Go for it.
Um, I cannot wait until I publish a novel that I can just tear. There's this, like, I had a junior year writing teacher that was just terrible, and I can't wait because my dedication will be dedicated to her, and I'm gonna tear her apart. That's all.
Wow. Driven by pettiness.
100%. Have you met me?
What keeps me going is my haters. This is Landon.
If there ever was a quote, it would be that one.
True creative
So,
fuel. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it's happened to me before. I've definitely achieved things specifically because someone decided it was their job to hate on me. And I was like, fine, I'm going to fucking show you. I'm going to do this.
I love it. It's to be honest, some of my best work. If you want inspiration, get mad at somebody and then use that to write stuff. Just saying.
Oh my gosh.
Anger fuels writing. It's fine. So does sadness, but you know what? Who knows?
That's where mine comes from, if we're being completely honest. Like, most of the stuff I've written is because I was sad about something. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
That's because I'm an emo bitch. But it's fine.
I listened to too much Dashboard Confessional in high school. Sorry, guys.
I'm so sorry. I feel sad on the inside and I have no reason to feel sad on the inside, so I'm just going to make all of my characters sad.
Bingo.
Oops.
But yeah,
They'll have
the point of that tangent is, like, I'm not saying that it's good to steal everything that you write. Like, there should be some of your own thoughts in there. But
and don't plagiarize.
yeah, and please don't plagiarize. Like, don't try to sell what you've stolen. Like, if you've stolen it, like, then please don't monetize it. But like, don't worry about stealing. Like, that shouldn't be like a thought that you worry about. Like, it's not a thing.
Especially because it's going to be so different at the end.
Yeah, because you're gonna do
Like, that's
drafts and
what
stuff.
I
Like,
can
it's
do.
fine. It's fine.
Things are going to change. And then even if you do sell it to a writer, do you know what they're going to do? If it is too close, that they're scared about plagiarism or backlash, like publishers, they're going to sit there and they're going to give you suggestions on how to change things ever so slightly. And it might be changing the cloaks of these like ring wraiths to blue instead of black, but that will in itself change it enough that it'll be fine. Like it can be small changes like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
What is this
or
comic? What is this comic that you're showing us, Thumper? Do I need to pull it up? Like the at least three
oh,
fics
it's
I
a
liked got turned into books and they got their dang money. Yeah, there's like so many books now out there that basically started out as fan fiction and then they decided to change just enough, basically scrape the what is it? Like scrape the barcodes off or something like that. There's like a phrase for it. I can't remember it. I'm saying it wrong, I'm sure. And I like that's valid. Like that's valid. How many writers through history have done that? Like that's what Shakespeare did. He didn't come up with Romeo and Juliet. That was Tristan and
no.
Isolde, right? He just changed it to be like, oh, Italy, Capulets and Montagues. I mean, that's what he did.
Yep. And also, like, here's the other thing too. If you are so set that you're so terrified that you don't want to write or that you don't want to move because this world is too close or this world is based off of something, then write the fan fiction.
Yeah. Just write the
Just do
fanfic.
that then.
Just write
Then
the
write the
fanfic.
fanfic. And if it's so important to you to keep that, then write it as a fanfic and know that it's going to be a fanfic and know that people might not read it because it's too OC fanfics. But if you want it to take place in that world, there's no shame with that. This shouldn't stop you from creating.
It shouldn't. It really shouldn't.
So, all right. I think now we can move on.
Okay. Okay, so what are some actual techniques that you can use? So like, okay, so we know all the fears, right? Like we know all the reasons that creativity stops and we know that we have to actually work to get inspired. But what does that work look like? I guess that's the next thing we really need to answer.
Yeah. So my absolute favorite, I think, first of all, I think writing tools, writing techniques, writing skills are always going to help you. But my absolute favorite is a free write. And now I also hate free writes.
But they work for you, right? So you keep doing them.
Good. Yes. And I do them. And I do them in homework. I do them as homework because of writing classes. I've done them as just like exercises in writing clubs. I do them if I just like am feeling something and I can't understand what I want to write. I just write it. And that is literally you set a timer on your phone. It can be a minute. It can be 5 minutes. It can be 10 minutes. It can be 30 minutes. And then you do not stop. You just start writing and you do not stop. You do not read back what you wrote. You do not do anything. You literally just write. And I promise you that at the end of a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, you will have a piece of shit. But you'll have written something. And something might come from that will at least let you sit there and be like, oh, this is a good line, or this is a good interaction, or I really like this and where I was going with this. So let's take this part and expand upon it. And from there, you can at least get that juices flowing so that you're not just staring at a blank page.
Yeah. Thumper's saying consuming new media is a big help for her. I have to agree, like that's the biggest thing that inspires me is looking at other people's stories and thinking like, oh, I could do that, but this different way that appeals to me more, or I could do this but better, or things like that. But before I kind of get into that, I want to talk a little bit about free writing because I definitely use this in my professional career. Like when it comes to this is especially helpful for me for projects that like they have deadlines, I have to do them. I do not have a choice. Like it has to happen whether I care about this project or not. I find free writing incredibly helpful. And I even apply it to other things, right? So like a lot of what I'm building at work is like I'm making instructional videos or like e-learnings or things like that, right? And so a lot of what I'll do, a lot of times, Storyline's one of the tools that I use. That's what I'm saying, Storyline. I'll just open Storyline and like start putting stuff in. Like, and it usually looks like hot garbage at first because I'm not very good at graphic design, but it gets me started so that I have some ideas. And yes, I end up throwing away most of what I do during that, that 30 minutes that I'm, free writing in Storyline, but it gives me something so that I know, okay, well, I tried this. The only good idea was this thing. So how can I make this thing actually work for the whole training, right? And
Yeah.
so I think free writing is really, really useful for those moments where you're not really interested in what it is that you're trying to make, but you have to go make it anyway. So like with work, or like if you're in a role play situation like I'm in often, where I'm the mod, and so I'm putting it on myself to go do something I don't necessarily want to do. Or like you've got a partner that you really love and you don't want to like lose them, and so you agree to a role play that you're not super into because you care about them. So situations like that where maybe you're not as super into what it is you're creating, free writing is like the tool in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the thing with free writing, it just proves that no matter what, you can put words on a page.
Yep.
And sometimes, like we talked about, that's sometimes the scariest place to be at. And if you just sit there and go for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to write, and it can be random words, you will eventually write something that isn't random words.
Absolutely. And I love free writing for that. And there's like a bunch of different tools online that you can use for this. Like there's tools that like will give you rewards and penalties and stuff. Like they gamify it. And there's
Ooh.
apps on your phone that will gamify it. Like there's a ton of them. I don't have any examples off the top of my head, but if you look for like free writing games, like if you put that into Google, you'll find apps and websites and stuff like that that will gamify the free writing exercises, so that it gives you kind of that extra little push. Like if you're somebody that's like staring at that blank page and you know that you need to free write, and starting the timer is like not enough to make you start, like that might be helpful as well, because then you have a little bit more incentive to get started.
Yep. And I know in like episode um 8 or 9, you and Naomi talked about rituals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the rituals and symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to, and you feel really like go get them, making a free write a part of your daily ritual will really help you continue to have writing in your life,
Absolutely.
and really will help you continue to like feel inspired, because that's a daily part of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something so easy without any pressure, because it literally is just writing for 5 minutes.
Yep. My dog is barking at something. You can keep going on this topic for a minute, but I gotta step away and see what she's barking at. Hang on one second.
Oh,
I'll be right back.
goody. Pressure to entertain all of you guys alone. That's so fun. Anyway, um, yeah, I love free writes. I think that they're one of the most important skills a writer can have, and I think that they're really, really freaking hard. Like, and that's not something that's really talked about a lot. Hi, Thumper. It's something that's not really talked about a lot, but it's of how hard it can be to like try to not write something perfect. And this breaks that mold, and it really is a nice way of doing that. So that's kind of what I thought about free writes.
Show us the dog. Sorry about that, guys. My dog is elderly, so and my husband and roommate, they went to the store. And she was sleeping on the couch, but because she's elderly, she struggles sometimes with her hips. And so I think she just was scared to jump down because she thought she might hurt
Oh,
herself. So that's why she was barking. So I just had to go get her down. She was in here briefly, and now she's leaving again. Bye. I don't know where she thinks she's
bye.
going. Oh, she's coming back. Here, I'll
She's
show.
like, oh, you know what?
Let me
I
see if I can.
actually want to be here.
Let me see if I can pick up the camera and show her to you guys. I think she's settled now.
Aw.
Oh, the cord is like not quite long enough, but there she
You're
is.
kind of. There
Vivi!
she is.
Vivi! Oh, and there's
Such
the
a
kitty cat.
cutie.
There's the queen. Oh, there's Queen. Hey!
The
He's
pets are so cute.
meow. Okay, now I gotta figure out how to put the camera back where it was.
We went off script,
There
guys.
we go. I think oh, it's not quite framed right.
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
2 pets for 1 camera move. Yeah, you better. You are very lucky, Thumper. You should be so
Oh, they're leaving again. I don't know what they're. I don't know. I think she just wanted to get down. I don't think she actually wanted to come hang out. But whatever.
Oh, pets.
Okay.
Um,
Where were we? Did you finish saying what you wanted to say about free writing?
Yeah, I had finished before that, so I just rambled some more, but it's good.
Oh,
That's what I'm paid the big bucks to do, Karen.
that's right. That's right. That's what your subscriptions are going to, right? Getting
Yeah,
landed
me
on
doing
here.
this for free.
Oh my God. Okay.
All right, let's
Back
move
to
on to
seriousness.
character
Yeah,
dive.
back to seriousness. What was the next technique that we wanted to talk about?
Character dives.
Character dives. Okay. So I definitely, as somebody that is primarily my primary creative outlet that I've had for the longest is role play. Um, just creating new characters and developing existing characters is something that I find easiest. And so for me, try when I'm struggling like to get the creative juices flowing, doing what's easiest sometimes is like the best thing, right? Like maybe I don't need to make a new character right now. Maybe I don't need to develop a certain character more right now, but because it's relatively easy for me compared to other creative activities, it's something that I can do that gets me started to be before I go do the next thing, right? So like I'll give an example. I write scripts basically for all of my videos, right? And sometimes there's a topic that I know I want to talk about, but I just can't work out in my head exactly what I want to say on it. And so I'll kind of like I'll struggle at the very beginning when I'm kind of like putting my points together. And one of the things that really helps me with that is just to write something else for a minute just to get the writing juices flowing. And often that something else is to do a character exercise, like create a new character, or maybe I'll go through some of my like 365 days of character development questions and like fill one out for a certain character or something like that, just to get the writing started because it's one of the few writing activities that's actually not that hard for me.
Yeah. Um, oh, that's such a good plug. I didn't even think of that when I came up with
I didn't think of it till
God
just now either.
damn.
As I was talking about it, I was like, oh, actually, I need to say it like this.
Buy her book, in other words.
Please.
Um,
It's
or
helpful, I
become a $10
promise.
or become a $10 subscriber on Patreon
Oh,
because
yeah.
then you
And then
get
you
the
get a
book for
copy.
free and a sticker. Anyway, um, but I think for character dives, I find them important. I find them creatively inspiring, mostly for RP only.
Mm,
I will do a somewhat of a character dive if I'm creating a character for solo writing. But let's be honest, a lot of my solo writing is fan fiction right now.
right.
So the character dive is pretty much there. But if I'm creating an OC, um, then I think that character dives can be very inspiring because I that's what I love about writing. I write because I love characters and
Mm-hmm.
people and
Mm-hmm.
how they act and how they think and doing that. And so being able to create something from nothing and like sit there and find out the depths of what a character is and who they are and why they are the way they are is one of my favorite things. And so it really does get me like in the mood to write.
Mm-hmm.
This particular tool is not the most helpful when I've been writing a character for a while
Yep.
and then still need inspiration because it's like I already know you, you son of a bitch.
It's too easy, right? It's too easy in that case because you know the
Yeah,
answer to any question.
and it's not inspiring. It's not like I'm finding out little things about these or idiosyncrasies about these characters. It's like, no, I already know how you're going to react to this and it's you're going to be an idiot. I don't need to talk about it for a little while. I know how it's going to happen.
Yep.
Um
I would
so I
agree with
find
that. It does not
I,
help for when I'm doing this. It's not as useful for me to like answer a question about Abby, for example, because I've been playing her for like what, like 7, 8 years now. Like it's just
yeah.
too easy, so it's not as helpful.
Yeah, and I still do these dives, and that's part of what makes it really exciting for the first few months of a new RP because I
Mm-hmm.
still do these dives for new characters, even if it's Rab, who I've been playing for 7, 8 years, alongside with Abby, like your Abby and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I still deep dive into who he's going to be in this verse. How is he going to be different? How has his baggage changed? All of this kind of stuff. How did he get to who he was? I still get to have that excitement, which makes me really excited for RP and really inspired for this new version of him.
Yeah.
But that only lasts so long, right?
Mm-hmm.
and it's not really the most helpful thing to do, when I'm 2 months in, 3 months in, 2 weeks in, to sit there and be like, I've already learned about this.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice sometimes if you have solo writing, if you're trying to flesh out a character, but like I said, for me, it's mostly for RP that I do this and I find a thrill in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually at the start of creating these characters. But if you're stuck and you're like, I'm tired of playing all the old characters I've been playing, I'm just not inspired by any of the plots or characters I have, then this can be a great way to get inspired again.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because once it has, because it has that kind of like veneer of newness, right? And that shiny new feeling like makes it exciting. Thumper asked a question back here that I just wanted to answer, not related to the topic, but these channel points are new. Yeah, those are new. When I got affiliate, those turned on. Haven't really dove into exactly what those are. I think I can customize them further, but yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome to use them with the defaults that are in there. I named them spell reagents because I thought that matched my kind of little like RP aesthetic thing that I've got going on here with like the EverQuest sounds and stuff. But yeah. So click them if you're interested. I don't know what they do or what value is in them, but I turned them on because it let me. um, but yeah, back to character
And we
dives.
love points. You know how well that goes for us.
Exactly. Just push the buttons. Just push the buttons. So yeah, when it comes to like these character dives, if I'm actually planning on like using the information in them for something and I'm not just using them as like an I need to write something that's easy to get started, then yeah, I totally agree. Like it's more useful when it's a character I'm not as familiar with versus a character that I'm familiar with, and it's more useful when I'm beginning a new setting with that character because there's going to be
Yeah.
unanswered questions in that particular setting.
Yeah. Was
Yeah.
there anything other like writing things that you could think of that those were the two that I had down as far as like
Mm-hmm.
writing activities that could be helpful? If anyone in the chat who's listening has ideas, then go ahead and write them down. These are those two that are my go-to.
So the thing that Thumper mentioned before is actually one that I do as well is consuming new pieces of media. So this isn't actually a writing exercise, but this is helpful for me to kind of think about certain things in new ways. Is to expose myself to the way other people have thought about this particular topic, right? So I think it's important to be constantly consuming new stories to feel inspired for your own, right? Because it's pretty normal for me when I'm watching something to get like attached to a certain character or get attached to a certain idea in that story. And that's not always like the idea or character that was the creator's favorite. Right? Like sometimes my favorite character gets a lot of development. Sometimes they're a background character that's in like 2 episodes and the writers clearly don't care about them, right? And my best experiences are actually when it's a character that the writers don't really care about because that opens me up to thinking about like, oh, here's all the cool stuff that they could have done that they chose not to
Yeah.
do that I can now go do something similar and feel really creative with it because they gave me this wonderful starting point of this character or this idea or whatever it is, right? Like I tend to be attracted to those characters that don't get a lot of screen time in their canon, right? Or don't get a lot of mentions in their canon book or whatever. So that's something
Yes,
that really really helps me.
that is one of my favorites is to criticize how other people have done it and then sit there and be like, I can do it better. But that's
Yeah.
because I'm competitive, as I was informed earlier today.
Oh my gosh, I was asking for your help. Okay.
Sorry, just needed to bring that up again.
Too
Um,
funny.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Consuming media is a very big one, because that's how else are you supposed to steal if you can't consume the media that you're stealing from?
Exactly. So yeah, that's a big one for me. Like in addition to actually like putting the pen to paper and doing free writing or doing character dives or things like that, it's really all about making sure that I am not stagnating and I am continuing to consume new stories. So I can see other
Yeah,
people's perspectives.
And we are writers, not infinite fonts of pure creation. I don't know what you're talking about, Thumper. I am an infinite font of pure creation.
But
Um,
I do think a lot of people think this way. Like I think a lot of people get discouraged because they think that's how it's supposed to happen and then it doesn't happen
oh
that
my
way
lord.
and they're like, "Well, what's wrong with me?" And it's like nothing's wrong with you. Nobody's like that.
And that just makes me so sad
Yeah.
to think. And I know it's true. And I know that there are baby writers out there who are just like, I'm supposed to create everything from scratch. And then I'm just like,
No.
no, it's fine.
Nope.
You don't have to. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. Take a rest, put your feet up.
Yeah, you
It's
absolutely
fine.
do not have to do that.
So, oh dear Lord.
You're getting blown
Um,
up on the discords.
I am. Oh, it's just Sasha.
Oh,
Uh,
tell her to get in here. Come hang out with us.
because she's driving.
Oh, my cat is trying to find where the cat is. Oh my god. My cat does the same thing when she can hear it. I've got headphones in, so of course she can't hear this. But I think that mewing is the eagle air sleep. It sounds just like a cat though, doesn't it? Like I think it does. But it's that guy sleeping. But yeah, as far as how to actually try to fix it when you are stuck creatively, I think a lot of it has to do with like putting pen to paper and actually writing. So if these exercises we mentioned today didn't speak to you, like go online and Google it and look for additional exercises for writing, and I'm sure you'll find something that speaks to you. Why are we holding on, Landon? Did you get disconnected? Yo, I'm by myself, y'all. I'm all by
I've
myself.
I've
Oh no, she's
used
back.
my idiot token for the day.
What happened?
I was like, oh my god, people are texting me, people are doing everything. I need to not. And then I was like, I'm just gonna exit out of Discord. Guess where we host our fucking conversations? Oh my god.
Girl,
I'm so sorry.
you logged out on me.
I clicked exit because I was like, Sasha's gonna keep talking, and I can't turn my sound off, and I can't turn notifications off, and
Oh
and
my
then I was like,
god.
it's just best to just close the app, and then it turns out, no, I was talking to Karen on the app, motherfucker. And then of course I started up the conversation again, trying to get back on track, and I was talking, and then I paused to wait for a response in the middle of a thought, and that is how I realized that I wasn't still on the conversation. Um,
Oh my god.
Kill
Oh
me.
my god. That is too funny.
Anyway,
Too freaking
hi,
funny.
welcome back. I'm so
Welcome back.
sorry.
Oh my god, it's okay. Shit happens, right? That's just
Apparently.
that's just hilarious.
Oh
I
god.
was so surprised. I was so surprised. Like I stopped talking and you didn't immediately start talking, so that's how I knew also that you were not there
Oh, okay.
anymore.
Good. I wasn't the only narcissist. That's good to know. Anyway, transition.
Yes.
Was there anything else that we wanted to discuss?
No, no. Basically, what I said that you had missed is if the writing exercises that we specifically mentioned today aren't speaking to you guys, like there's other ones. Just like Google, writing exercise
Yeah.
help or writing prompts or things like that, and you'll find like a wealth of knowledge and information. Because the point is, if you haven't guessed by now, right? It's like the way to fix lacking inspiration is to just start writing. That's what it
Yep.
is.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what the free write's about. That's what the like don't worry about anything is about. It is just keep going. Just
Yep.
write
Yep.
the best you
Exactly.
can.
Exactly. They got back from the store, so I just closed the door so we wouldn't hear all that cross talk noise. So
Oh,
that's what I
good.
hopped up for.
That's totally fine. Today's RP is brought to you by other things happening outside around us, including text messages, Discord, husbands coming home, and cats going crazy on catnip.
It's okay. He went to the store to get me more stuff to make for football snacks tomorrow. I have been assigned, and I'm not mad about this because I'm really excited for it. I have been told I need to make buffalo chicken dip and I need to make deviled eggs. So, we're going to have that tomorrow for football Sunday. I'm so excited about it. So they were going to the store to like get stuff to make that. So I'm happy about that. Oh, thank you so much for the host, Lunar. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, buffalo chicken dip is freaking amazing. I use the Frank's buffalo chicken dip recipe, but then I add in more Frank's than what it calls for. So yeah.
Oh, we love what's football season, and know that
Mhm.
I'm being very sarcastic when I say that.
Mm.
That's because football.
Well, I actually don't hate football, but what I love most about
Um,
football is the football snacks. So, you know.
well, yeah, and the commercials are really clever.
Mhm.
I appreciate the commercials too.
Oh, yeah, they usually have the
So
best commercials during football, although until you get to the Super Bowl, it's pretty repetitive. The ones that you see. If you watch football every week, you see the same freaking commercials, which gets kind of annoying. But yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
All right,
Um,
so those are
and
the
yeah,
exercises that we recommend. What was the next piece that we wanted to talk about with inspiration?
I think we wanted to dive back into what do you do when you are stuck? Because
Okay.
here's the thing, you're gonna get stuck.
Yep.
It's part of the writing habit, and if it's moving on, awesome. If you want to figure out how to get unstuck, here are some ways that you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my biggest one is kind of like, other than walking away, is take a break.
Yep. Yep. I
It's just
think
that simple. Like I,
yeah, taking a break and breathing sometimes is like the best thing. So there's like a problem solving technique. There's a problem solving technique called put it away. And sometimes like all you need is to go to sleep and wake up the next morning and try again the next morning. Right? Like sometimes all you need is to go have lunch and come back on a full stomach. Sometimes that's it.
yeah,
So when I'm talking about like taking a break as a writing technique, I don't mean like don't write for years. Although if you have to, you have to, right? But what I really mean is like sometimes it's not beneficial to force yourself to write that particular reply or finish that chapter in that moment. Like you might have set a goal for yourself that you're going to do that, but I think that we don't want to get so wrapped up in our goal that we forget that we're people with human bodily needs, and sometimes that's what's stopping you from writing. And taking a break is really, really helpful. Taking a break, I find, is also really helpful when you've become, I guess, what I could call too emotionally invested in what's going on and you can't think straight about it. And like, you just need to step away so that you don't feel like you're taking something personally, especially in roleplay, where it can be really hard sometimes to separate what's going on between you and your partner with what's going on between your character and your partner's character. So in those situations, I find for me, stepping away is really helpful to make me not internalize it as something personal.
yeah. I think that's one of the things that, like, it's really nice that this is an online activity, because it does give you the freedom to like step away and not even like make it about having to step it away. Like, so many people are just like, "Oh, I have to go run an errand or do this thing." Even if you don't have to, you have a little bit more freedom that you can like take yourself out of a situation and no one is going to know why you're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like if you're in person talking to someone or something like that, if you need to take that break because you've gotten overwhelmed or over emotional or overly invested, you it's a lot harder to cover that up.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah.
Online you can just be like, "Oh, husband just got home," or "I'm have an appointment," or "I have to take this call," or something. You can like lie through your teeth a little bit about it, and no one's gonna know or judge you,
Yeah,
and that's okay too.
yeah. Because it doesn't really matter. Like, why you need to take the break doesn't really matter, right? It's about recognizing when you need to. Um, and if it's something where you can't take a break, Um, I really do like Thumper's suggestion here about messaging the other person to brainstorm. And she says, because sometimes my brain be broke and their brain be spoke. I butchered it. I was gonna sound all cool saying it because it was such a cool turn of phrase, and then I freaking didn't do it right on the first take.
And that's
Oops. But that's really helpful. That's really helpful. Yeah, go ahead, Landon.
Oh, that's a huge reason why I love plotting.
Yep.
I love plotting because having those conversations really can be inspiring.
Yep.
And knowing what I'm going to do really can be inspiring, and can help ease the load for the times that I'm stuck, for the
Yep.
times that I like can't get something out, that I have to do the bare minimum. I at least know that my partner and I know we're going in the same direction.
Yep.
Or I can reach out to them and be like, hey, I need to get re-inspired. Let's talk and discuss what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's nice to have that, and I think that that is a purely RP what's RP thing that you have, right? Is that when you're writing with somebody else, a co-writing experience that you can lean on that other person. With solo writing, you don't have that, so it's a lot harder, and that is something that I do love about RP.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you can create it in solo writing though. Like you can have like a critique partner in solo writing. If you can find a friend that's also doing a lot of similar solo writing to you, like writing in your same genre or writing fanfic, and you're also writing fanfic or something like that, then I think that you can like have them available to talk about it, but it has to be mutual, right? Like you have to be available to do it for them too when they're similarly stuck. So it's a little bit
yeah,
harder in solo writing because you have to kind of make that agreement instead of that agreement being implicitly there, you know, like it is with role play. But I think you can still create that. You just have to go be intentional about trying to create it.
yes, I agree, and that it's going to be someone also who is, I think with the solo writing, having a critique partner,
Mm-hmm.
um, their job is to critique it. So I don't know if necessarily there's going to be, and it matters the relationship you have with them as much, but they're not going to be as invested in it
Mm-hmm.
because they're not part of the creation of it. They're part of the changing of it. They're part of the editing of it. And they are an active part of the process. However, the words are not coming from their head. The story is not coming from their head.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a very different relationship than someone who is an RP partner.
Mm-hmm.
I think is
Mm-hmm.
the one thing to take into consideration with that.
Yeah, because with roleplay, it's like implicitly there. Like the roleplay doesn't happen without both of you. So they are incentivized to help you in a way that a critique partner is not in solo writing. So yeah, like it's because you have to be very intentional. You have to be very intentional with it when it comes to solo writing, because they're not necessarily going to just do it right. Because they're not. It's not like the story stops for them, right? They've still got their own book that's going along fine, you know, as the case may be.
Yep. So it's it's just a lot to it's just you have to cultivate it, like you said. You have to
Yeah.
build it. You have to find it. Whereas with RP, it's naturally set in.
Mm-hmm.
Um. So yeah, having going to a partner is another great option. Taking a break. And then we also had consuming other media. You
Yep.
said like that's a great way. If you, I mean, take a break, go watch a TV show.
Yep.
Who knows? Or if you've taken a character that has been inspired, we'll do Rab. Rab has been obviously a character that has been used multiple times, but is loosely, and actually now that I've written him longer, has gotten closer to Klaus Michelson off of the original.
It's funny.
There
It's
was a,
funny because he had that influence from the beginning, but he's like
yes,
more and more become like, especially the sad boy parts of Klaus have come out
exactly.
like more and more and more over the years, which amuses me to no end. But I mean, I love that. I love the character, so I think that's all good. But it is funny that that's the case.
Yeah, he certainly. I was rewatching the originals, and I'm like, wow, Rab has gotten whinier.
Yes. But it's good.
He's
It's
more
a
like
it's a really
that now.
lovely flaw. It's
And
a
I mean,
really
and
lovely
it fits,
character flaw.
and it fits especially him, and I think he's more whiny in this RP than he has been in previous ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it fits him in this RP
Oh, it
to a T.
does.
It
Yeah.
just like that's just part of the spoiled brat in him.
Yep.
Um, and so Klaus is very much like that. That like if I'm struggling with a reply post or I'm struggling with just like finding this muse in general, go turn on Netflix and turn on the TV show that inspired this character that you're writing. If you
Yep.
have a fan character, an OC invented off of this character, you can use that as a tool to inspire yourself again, because sometimes it's hard, especially if you are writing a fandom character, to feel like you're not writing them good enough or that you've lost a piece of that muse, or you're just not like feeling it as much, that being able to be like, oh, I have something that this is directly based off of, to just like go and find it. You can do that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes like fan writing and fan role play a lot easier is that it's very easy to be like, oh, let me just go look at the thing that this character is based off of. Whereas when you're writing original stuff, you have to think a little bit more about like where did my inspiration for this character actually come from? And so, if you do have something like that for your original character, like, you have an original character that's inspired from some other character, even though they're not really, like, it can still be beneficial to go look at those things that originally inspired you to create that character. It kind of like
Yeah,
rekindles it, right? Like, it's like a rekindling feeling that you can get of like,
yeah,
oh, yeah, this is why I love them so much. This is why. And these are the mannerisms that I find so interesting, or their thought processes that I find so interesting, or whatever.
yeah. And if there is a trope that you're and also if you're not close enough to your partner, or your partner is not a plotter, or you just don't want to reach out to them because like you've been really struggling or whatever, um and if there is a trope or a relationship that you like that reflects the dynamic that you are trying to write out, then watch that too, or
Mm-hmm.
read that fan fiction, or do whatever. Like, you can go to other sources to get inspired, and I think that's the important thing that is being said.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Like it's kind of goes back to like that fear of copying. I feel like this is one of those techniques that gets missed a lot by newer writers that are scared of copying because they think like, oh, if I go consume all this different kind of media, or if I go back and watch the thing that originally inspired me, I'll accidentally copy. And I can't. I have found that to be like completely not true. Like that's just not the reality that I live in when I create something. Going back and looking at the thing that originally inspired me creates new thoughts. It doesn't make me like copy the thing. It's just not how I have found that I exist in creative spaces.
Yes, exactly. And it just, yeah.
Yep.
Copy, copy, copy. It's fine.
Yeah, it's really fine. It's
unless
really fine.
unless you're going to the printers and trying to make money from it, it's 100% fine. And if you're going to the printers and trying to make money from it, it's still 100% fine. Just change little things,
Yeah, just
and
make
then don't
sure
try to hide that you.
just make
That's
sure you're
it.
not plagiarizing. I think that a lot of
Yes.
times we try to take copying and plagiarizing and make them the same thing because they can be kind of similar, but they're not really the same thing.
But I
They're
think, like,
not.
I know for me, I'm exaggerating, and I apologize for this exaggeration, but I feel like college has been really a nun with a ruler to my like fingers. You know, that old like
Yeah.
visual about plagiarism,
Yeah.
because everyone is like, you cannot plagiarize, you cannot cite everything, do this, and it's like, well, you actually, especially when you're writing creativity, like as a creative, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And as long as you're not like stealing dialogue and things that have actually been written by another person, and you're just reimagining things, it's totally fine.
Yep. Yeah, it really is.
um I personally don't find like as much joy in like just straight copying. I like, especially when I'm solo writing, if it's not the intention of fan fiction, I like to world build. So I like to explore a little bit. But having my base be this world, or build off of this idea, or take this from Game of Thrones, 100% can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Thumper says had to deal with so much plagiarism from my students, and I think that when it comes to plagiarizing in academics, um, people's careers survive off of them publishing, so that's one reason it's really important. And then from an educational perspective, like you don't you want to make sure that the student actually understood what they wrote, and when someone plagiarizes, it's really hard to know if they understood it or not. And so I think those are the two things that it comes from. And when you think about that why, and it's like, okay, well, that's why you don't plagiarize in academics, but those whys don't really apply to creative writing. So it's just like, because we spend so much time talking about don't plagiarize, and we don't emphasize the why, we kind of take that academic idea of don't plagiarize and we try to like put it onto other things that it just doesn't apply to.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah.
uh, Sorry, just battle scars from college. It's fine.
But it's true though. I mean, that's why we had that whole episode on the education system, because a lot of our problems that we have experienced as creatives, I think stem from that, right? Because once you get out into the workforce, no one cares if you copy. They just care if you finish the task. You know, like my boss wants me to do this. She does not care if I came up with the idea or if I Googled, how do you do this, and then copied somebody. Like, she doesn't care. She just needs, at the end of the day, the company just needs the task done, you know?
Exactly. And if you took it from someone else, as long as you're not literally stealing an opportunity from somebody else, like you're not like someone else did work and you're not sitting there and being like, well, I did this work,
Yeah.
then copying is 100%
Yeah,
fine.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter,
And
you know?
also, all bets are off when it's another company. If you're stealing from someone from like if there's someone else who did this work for another company, you're like, can I actually borrow your answers? It's
Yeah.
totally fine.
Yeah, because they already got paid for it, right? Like, they already got paid. So it's like,
And you're not like affecting their trajectory or stealing a job from them or anything like that because you're literally not compete. Your companies are competing, but you're not competing.
right.
So
Yeah, it's like a totally different thing. So, yeah, but
yeah,
I agree. Like, academics is a lot of what screwed us up for that, you know? Oh my
I
gosh.
agree.
I don't know if you're in the stream right now, Olivia, but thank you so fucking much. If you are, I just got a new patron. Oh my god, I just got a new $10 patron. So hey,
Oh,
Olivia, if you're watching, oh my god, thank you. I don't know if they
it's
are.
because we plugged your book, Karen.
Maybe. It could be,
That's
right? Like, it kind of could be.
100%. Yes. So my next thing would be to tough it out.
Yeah.
Like that might suck and it might seem counterintuitive to be like, I'm forcing myself to do this and that's going to inspire. But like, especially when it comes to replies, and I know we've talked about this in a multitude of episodes
Mm-hmm.
before, but sometimes you just got to write bad.
Yeah.
And your bare minimum has to be good enough.
Yep.
And sometimes it is just good enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, sometimes,
So,
like, done is better than perfect, right? Done is
yeah.
better than perfect, and that is no less true in role play than in any other creative thing, right? What's that?
And
What's that video that you're linking, Thumper?
yeah, we can't watch stuff. Thumper,
Yeah.
we're on.
But I mean, we can maybe watch it after the conversation. But what is it? So I know if we should maybe open it or not. Because when we do the wrap up, we could maybe open it before we
Not to
do
call
the
you out,
before we
by
do
the
the
way.
last little article, depending on what it is.
Also, not to call you out and be mean, that sounded more mean than I meant it to be. But like, yeah. Anyway, um,
Why are you so rude? Stop being so rude,
I,
Landon. God.
here's the problem. I feel like my humor is to just be super sarcastic and kind of make fun of everyone, including me. And then my anxiety disorder makes it, and my, abandonment issues are just like, you just made fun of somebody, they're going to hate you forever. And then it's like, I gotta make sure that they're not going to hate me forever. Um,
Well, too late. I already hate you forever and ever.
I know, I hate you too.
Aw. Oh my God. No, we know. I think everybody knows at this point, or I hope everybody knows at this point that, like, Landon is very
I'm a fake
sarcastic. Landon is very sarcastic. She brings out the sarcasm in me because it's easy to do when someone's being sarcastic is to be sarcastic back, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully, like, y'all know, we don't mean all that kind of stuff. Like, it's just in good fun, right? It's just in good fun because we've been friends for like 7 freaking years, and so when we get around each other, we kind of like do that.
Yeah. And if you're in the chat, you're my friend too. So that means I get to make fun of you as
It's
well.
true. If you make fun of
Um,
someone and they make fun of you, that's the best, though. It is. It is. It's one
yes.
of those things that's so funny to me. This is like a little tangent, but whatever. It's so funny to me because, like,
Yeah.
you do have to get to a certain kind of, like, I guess you could say, friendship level before, like, that's appropriate. When someone does that to you and, like, you haven't built up that trust, it's just like, it's just mean and awkward.
Okay, but here's the problem. Is it because I just do it right off the bat? And then people
uh
either get it or they don't.
well, I'm like a sensitive emo bitch, so yes. Yes.
It's probably a good thing you met me when I was 19 and not nearly as much of an asshole.
That's true. I don't know. But you were a very different person then too.
Oh, thank God for therapy. Anyway, that was a tangent.
It was, but it was, I don't know, it amused me, so I thought it would be okay.
I'm
Um,
perfectly okay with just having amusing conversations. So. And we have like only one thing to talk about, and we've talked about it already. So we can extend things out as long as we need to.
yeah, what's
Um,
run it up the flagpole and see who salutes. Yeah. I guess that's kind of the method, right? What's that video? Thumper, what's the video so I know if I should open it? Cuz maybe it's like worth showing. Um
she thinks
can
it's like a Christmas present. She's like, "Is it worth it?"
Landon, open it and tell me what it is. Oh wait, no, she's going to tell me now. Okay, Thumper's going to tell me now. Never mind.
Money makes the world go round. Okay.
From
Oh,
Cabaret.
from Cabaret.
Oh, yeah. I can't play copyrighted songs on stream, but very appropriate. I like it.
Patron. Oh, you said patron, not patron, but I was like Patron. Who cares?
I
Patron,
always
Patron,
I
same
always
thing.
say it wrong too. Like I'm trying to say, like I'll try to say patron when I'm talking about a person, but it keeps coming out Patreon because that's what the platform is called. So I'll like call my patrons Patreons, but that's not right. They're patrons. Maybe we should spell it patron. Yeah, that would help. Honestly, it would help. I'm just saying, it would help.
Anyway, yeah, tough it out. You're good. Your bad's got to be good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know for me, like, I would prefer to get a bad response than no response. So, and I know
Yeah.
that's not how everyone feels. Like, some people are like, I'd rather wait forever to get your best response. But, like, honestly,
Really?
like, I don't think it's true. Like, I don't think that's true.
No.
I think people say that because they want to be given the grace to also take forever because they're waiting on the best response. I don't think anyone actually like in their heart feels that way. I don't, and because I don't think they're looking for perfection. I think they're just looking to hang out and role play and play pretend. You know, I don't think they're looking for like that perfect response every time. Like that's just so
It's
unrealistic.
yeah, I don't just give me I mean, give me crap. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's okay.
yeah,
Now, if we get to a point where all we're doing is throwing the crap back and forth, then my RP partner and I need to have a discussion about like what's going on, where's it going,
mm-hmm,
what do we want? Because that
yeah.
happens too, right? That you find yourself that you're like, ooh, I'm not in this, and neither is my partner.
Oh, Lunar, it's
Neither of us.
you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh God.
Oh,
Neither of us are necessarily. It's fine. Neither of us are necessarily in this, and now we need to have a conversation and either both get inspired or do what's next, and either end the thread and the whatever, move on.
yeah. No, I agree.
And that happens too, right? That's totally okay for it to happen as well.
Well, that's
Um,
why I think Thumper's suggestion was so important, right? Like sometimes the answer is, especially in role play, go talk to your partner, right? If you're not feeling inspired, then sometimes the answer is to talk to them and they'll be able to help with something that is going to make you inspired or at least help you figure out for yourself why you're not feeling inspired anymore so that you can fix it, you know?
yep, I agree. Yeah, it's part of that, and then that's also part of the RP process and having relationships with your partners and why it's so important to have open communication and things that we've already discussed to death about.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, that happens, and sometimes your worst is your best,
Mhm.
and that's okay because something is better than nothing, and that also goes over to solo writing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Sometimes there is a really boring part or a chapter or even like three chapters that you just don't want to necessarily write, but writing them and just getting through it will at least take that load off of your shoulders so that you're able to be inspired again. Because if you have something closing you off because you're so worried about these three chapters or this one reply or something, then you're not going to be able to be as creative and as inspired as you want to be.
Exactly.
And if you at least like be like, okay, you know what, this sucks and it's not my best, but I get to at least take it off my shoulders and then I can open myself up to other things, you're going to find a way to get inspired again.
Yep. And the wonderful thing about solo writing is that you can write that first draft and not show it to anybody. Like no one has to see it. No one has to see the shame, right? It's very easy to like write that solo writing, write that first draft and then go to bed and then the next morning look through it again and fix it. You know, like you don't
Yeah.
have to click post, especially with solo writing, on that first draft.
And
It's not necessary. So there's no reason to stress over it. Everyone's first drafts are bad, right? Like
yeah.
everyone's first drafts are bad.
Yeah, no one has written a good first draft in the history of the world. And if an author says that they have, then first of all, bullshit, and
Yeah.
also that they can be a way better author then.
Yeah, because think about what
Like,
they could have done if they would have done a second or third draft, right?
yeah.
So it could have
And
been
it
better.
yeah, it could have been so much better. And it's okay. It does, and I think that there's this like also this thing that if you cannot produce something amazing every single time, then you're a shitty writer. Or if you have to have drafts, then you're a shitty writer. That is so not true.
Yeah.
Writing is not the act, like, writing in itself is not the act of writing. It's the ideas behind it, it's the depth of the character, it's all of these little tiny things that come into it. And even then, that's even a small percentage because most of what writing is editing.
Yeah. You spend
Is
way
being
more
able
time. Mm-hmm.
is be able to look at something and go, how can I make this better? But in order to ask that question, in order to get into the real writing part of the job, which is actually editing,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to have something to try to make better.
Yep.
And sometimes to do that, you just have to grin and bear it and get through it.
Yep. And I think that's really what the point is, right? We're talking about inspiration, but really I think the advice is like don't wait for inspiration, just write.
Yeah, just right.
Yeah.
And you will be amazed that if you do these things, you will have a moment where it's like the gods are shining down on me and I've suddenly been inspired because you're opening yourself up to that.
Yep.
Because
Exactly.
you're not closed off and weighed down by all these things that you should be doing but are trying to avoid, or you're at least in the process of doing it.
Yep.
And or you're giving yourself opportunity because you're writing every day. All of these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's all
So,
super valid.
yeah.
Yep.
So, it's sometimes the advice I have for you is just do it.
Yeah.
Just write
Yeah.
and you'll be inspired
And it's
eventually.
yep. And it's hard, right? Like I don't we're saying these things and I don't want anyone to come away thinking that it's easy. Like this isn't necessarily easy. Like I know why so many people can't just do it. You know, they've got school that they're stressed about. They've got a job that they're stressed about. They've got kids and a family and a house that they're taking care of. And we have there's so much time that you have to devote in this world just to surviving that like I get it. Like I get that that's, you know, for a lot of people that's why they don't feel as inspired as they want to, and why it's difficult for them to just go do it. But also I don't want to lie to anyone. Like that's just the reality. That's just the reality. If you want to do this, like you have to find the time. And it sucks that our world is structured in that way where it's not easy to find the time. But you know, as much as I wish I could change the world, unfortunately I don't have that power. We can talk about, you know, how that's unfair and how that shouldn't be, and that's all true. That is unfair and that's not how it should be. But you still have to somehow figure out how to survive happily in this world that we're in, you know, with all the limitations that it has.
I agree.
Yep.
And that this is just part of it.
Yep.
And you're right, it's not easy. There have been more times than I can count that I have sat there and I have looked at something that I have just written and I have hated it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That I have just asked myself, is this all that I am? Is this all that I am worth? That I want to be a writer? And is this all that I can do? Are you kidding me? And then there are also the times that I have done everything that I'm supposed to do, or I have just written or done a free write and I like one line, and that one line has produced a poem that is now one of my favorite poems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's doing things like that. It is putting in the work. It's knowing that things happen with vision and patience and kindness to yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
understanding that not everything you are going to write is going to be perfect, and that everything that anybody else wrote is perfect as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And you shouldn't be comparing yourself to others anyway, you
I
know.
mean, yeah, but like we naturally do that, right? Because
Yep.
we've been raised and trained to do that. And that's part
Mm-hmm.
again about why it is we are this way. It's because we've been raised that everything is a competition.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is something that needs to be comparative.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is pass or fail.
Yeah, like you always have to do the best you possibly can, but that's not the case. That's
And
not the
then,
case.
even more than that, the best you can is going to be compared to 1,000 other people's best you can.
Yep.
And is it really the best you can do? Because it isn't the best.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, that we can change how we think about that. It's going to be hard. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
a long process, and we're not there. So we got to play by the rules right now.
Mm-hmm.
But how you choose to embrace that is up to you as well.
Yep, absolutely. Thumper says, could you get around to obtaining that power? Talking about, me being able to affect those big changes in the world. I mean, that might be nice, but I feel like, if I actually had the skills needed to get to the point where I had a lot of power in our society with the way that it's structured, I probably wouldn't be somebody that had these ideals, right? Like it's very hard to be somebody that has ideals like this and actually gain, significant amount of power in our society, which, that sucks, but that is what it is. So,
You can
that'd
give
be
me the
cool.
power to you can give me the power to rule the world, though I won't become corrupt. I'm a good person.
I believe in you. Yeah, I think highlighting. So what Lunar said, she discovered you can highlight messages now. Yeah, if you do the spell reagents thing down at the bottom, like I turned that on. It was called like community something. I can't remember what the default name of it was. But yeah, I turned it on so you can do a bunch of fun things down there. I think I can eventually customize that, but I haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, have fun. Go wild with that.
Should we bring it to the Good News Network of the day?
We should. Okay. Yep, it's about that time. So I will go ahead and save the game and we will get to that. We're almost done with everything, with getting all the pinatas that I wanted in this particular garden, and we'll be able to move on
Ooh.
pretty soon. It takes a while to get those eagles, y'all. Those eagle airs take for freaking ever. So it's been a minute. Okay, so let's do
You have
this.
let's just talk about how many hours you've put into this game, though.
Oh my gosh, so many. And I mean,
We're
because
up
we've been
to
doing it, yeah,
16.
and because we've been doing it while we're talking, like it's not like I don't, I don't like concentrate that hard. So like I could play this faster if I was just actually concentrating on it. But yeah.
But I'm just like, okay, 16, 2 hours. We're already at like 42 hours. Nope, that's not the right math. 32 hours. I'm a
Yeah.
math teacher,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, this game has a lot of goodie in it. You can play for a long time
Which is
if you're
awesome.
patient. Yeah.
I
I'll
was
have
just thinking that, but I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll have to eventually
Um,
think about what I want to play next. We'll see. Okay, so our article for today,
this,
tell me about
this
it.
is this is a self-serving article because elephants are my favorite, and I saw this and I went, "This is what's happening." So it's about strangers who give performance elephants, so elephants from circuses, which thank God the Ringley Brothers has finally closed and banned all elephants use and stuff like that. Um, but give them new life in Thailand in a sanctuary.
Oh, I love
And
it.
yeah, so some zoos, especially in Asian countries and in some African tourist countries, elephants are very poorly treated
Hmm.
within zoos there because there are no regulations of having zoos. If you've seen like movies like Life of Pi, as well as a lot of other documentaries, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but they discuss this about how like animals are mistreated in zoos in some of these countries. And
Mm.
elephants are part of that, especially because they've become part of the tourist industry. That elephants are just not being taken care of well. But um, because of like COVID-19, a lot of these zoos have been closing,
Mm.
and this jungle sanctuary has been given the opportunity to take over these elephants from the closing zoos and give them a proper home.
Oh,
Um, and so there's not a huge amount of photos, but I thought that that was like just really heartwarming to sit there and be like, oh, these elephants have been finding a new home and are healing and have found their forever home where they're actually going to be taken care of
I love
and
this.
properly cared for.
And y'all can see that they've got some links here to like donate if you're interested to helping
Yes.
this foundation that's trying to, help with these performing elephants, because I'm sure it's complicated, right? Like I assume it's complicated in the sense of, if they grew up and lived in performance, it's not like they can just release them out to the wild and they'll be fine. Like I'm sure
Yeah,
that there's a lot more to it. um
absolutely
so
not.
there
And
we
some of these
go.
elephants are so like are so sick when they arrive or poorly handled or just abused that they do really have to spend their life um in a sanctuary such as this.
Hmm.
um but at least then they're not performing, they're not tied to posts, they are able to roam free as much as they can, and they are able to like start living somewhat near their natural life instead of in a cage.
I love that. That's so nice. I
So,
have I have a lot of mixed feelings about zoos, right? Like on one hand, fundamentally, I can't agree with the idea of a zoo, because it's like taking an animal outside of their natural habitat and inserting them into a more, human-like habitat. It's kind of the same idea of like of taking a person and saying you're not allowed to have a home anymore, like you have to be homeless, like kicking someone out. Like
yeah.
it's like that, but for an animal. But I do recognize that for a lot of zoos, they're working with animals that could not go out to the wild, right? So
Hmm.
because of what we have done historically to these animals, in a lot of ways, zoos are one of those things that are a necessary evil. I hope someday we'll be able to move on and not have such a thing anymore. That the only animals that we're keeping are truly domesticated animals, that they're not wild animals. But unfortunately, that's not our world right now. So I
I
really
also
like this. I hope that they do really well. And if you guys are interested, I'll put it up on the screen here. So here's their website if you want to go help them out with these elephants.
and not to get too political about like zoos and stuff like that, but I do want to say my 2 cents as far as like
Yeah.
I think the thing that zoos do with good regulation and healthy environments, they make people care because we have proven, especially here in America, that if it is outside of our purview or knowledge, we don't really give two shits.
Yeah.
Um, and zoos, if you grew up going to see the lions at the zoo and you love the lions, then you will love lions and care that if lions are going to be poached or hunted or anything like that, you start caring about that. Same thing with the elephants, same thing with, aquariums and fish are the kind of the same thing
Hmm.
that like having that sort of care and that ability to like show people these animals exist in real life allows us to show a little bit more empathy towards them, which I
Yeah.
think is good. However, I think that there are a lot of rules that are stupid around animal ownership. Looking at you, Tiger King. Um,
That should not be
and
possible, right?
no, but like the reason why it was possible is because they sold themselves as a zoo,
Hmm.
and they weren't a zoo; they were collectors,
Hmm.
and that happens here. It happens everywhere. People want to just make a buck and don't care about the animals, and that's what I think is really truly sad about it. So, I would love to see some nonprofit zoos pop up. That would be great,
Yep.
because then at least I know that the owner isn't just walking away with millions and millions of dollars every year. But
Yep.
that's for another time.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yeah, no, I mean, I basically agree. Like I say, it's one of those things that I think is a necessary evil in our current world. I hope, generations from now, at least like another generation from now, if not sooner, that we're able to live in a world that we don't have to meet these animals to feel empathetic towards them. I think we should just do it because they're living creatures, and of course we should, because we wouldn't want these things done to us. But you're right. Like as a species, as a society, we're not there yet, and so this is like the best we can do for the moment. So yeah, I totally
yeah.
agree. Totally agree. Um, it's just unfortunate that
Anyway,
that's truth. So yeah, but yeah,
save our elephants.
if
Be
y'all are
kind to animals.
it's nice. It's nice that this organization is able to help some of those elephants that became homeless due to COVID. So it's nice to see that somebody is out there trying to help them. So this is where, you guys can come and like they have, the thing sponsor an elephant. I assume this is just like any other. Yeah, so you do this.
Yeah,
Um
it's
Yeah, zoos are also critical towards conservation and breeding up animals to bolster wild populations. Yeah, it's true. And I mean, it's one of those things that like we caused the problem, so we're trying to fix it, right? So absolutely 100% true. But this is a nice little story. You know, what it comes from is really sad, but it's nice seeing somebody trying to do the right thing and trying to help these elephants out. And I know elephants, that's like basically your favorite animal.
Yes, it is. It is my favorite. I love
Hmm.
them so much. Them and orcas.
Oh yeah, orcas are really cool, right? They're so
Big
cool.
and big matriarchal societal like animals. My favorite. And orcas are there and elephants are there for that.
Yeah, they both
Oh,
do
and
that.
family oriented.
Hmm.
So that is my favorite.
So cute. I love it.
Anyway,
Okay, good article. I liked this one. It was really nice.
yeah. Thank you
Okay.
so
So we can do our ending now. Landon, where can everybody find you?
People can find me on Land in Maine, spelled Landin, and then the state Maine, on Instagram, and then also on Twitter. But I mostly am just a simp for Karen's Twitter on Twitter. Um,
Landon likes all my posts. She rarely posts her own. You should tweet more.
I mean, between with what time, Karen?
I don't know.
When I'm not hosting, when I'm not hosting podcasts, I'm doing a lot. Yeah. Also, several things. Hold on. Sorry. So you can do that. You can find me there. If you're going to find me on Instagram, shoot me a DM because my Instagram is private because of my like social life, like not social life, but because of like my job. But I will gladly friend and let anyone who is a part of this community follow me. I just need to know that you're not some creeper from like Bangladesh. That's all I ask. So please get me. And then yeah, just feel free to follow me on Twitter. Also, thank you, Thumper, for teaching me about Among Us. Because now I'm just playing that nonstop. So if anyone wants to get a game together for Among Us, I am here for it. I'd love to do it. That's all. That's all I got to say.
I love it. It is funny. Why are like the fake, obviously not people, like not obviously not real individual accounts, like always claiming that they're from Bangladesh? Like that's just so weird, right? But I see that on Instagram all the time too.
Right?
And it's like you're not a real person. What do you even mean? Oh, okay. So yeah, I'll do the where you can find me now. You can find me here, of course, on Twitch. We do Interstage Window every Saturday, starting at noon till about 2 o'clock. That's usually with Landon. If Landon can't join me, then it'll be Naomi. Sometimes we have guests too. If you're interested in being a particular guest on here when we do have guests, make sure you're in my Discord because that's where I announce what the topic is going to be, so that you can let us know that you're interested. And those that let me know that like for future topics that we talk about, we might do that you're interested, know that I do take note of that so that we have that information. Um, and then also, I do a stream on Thursdays called Artistic License, which is my unstructured, mostly unstructured stream where I just do whatever the hell. That's also where I will do like announcements and things like that to keep you guys updated on what's going on in the channel, what's going on with me, stuff like that. And then the other place you can find me is Twitter. It's Karen Terry is my Twitter. It's mostly advertising for stuff and also occasional hot takes. So if you like that, follow my Twitter. I post a lot about being pro ship and pro fiction and anti censorship because that's what you do on the Twitters. And and then lastly, you can find me on YouTube. That's where VODs of this stream go up on YouTube, and also VODs of Artistic License go up on YouTube. And that's where I do my roleplay help show, which is Spare Room. So those are like discrete, small, like scripted packaged topics, and that goes up every Wednesday at 2 p.m. And yeah, that's all the places that you can find me. And thank you guys so much. I want to just say again to Lunar and to Snow for subscribing. I really expected to turn this on and then nothing happened. Like honestly, truly, I keep having these expectations and then y'all like blow them away. So so
You're amazing.
thank you so much for subscribing. I did not expect that. And I will work on doing more research for my Twitch to try to actually have like some custom stuff and things for you guys that are subscribing. So I that is my task to do to work on this, because you made me feel like I should be legit, like I should get my own artwork and things like that. So I'll work on that, and thank you again so much. And yeah, that's it. That's all I had to say.
Awesome. Well, guys, don't forget to be awesome.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming to Interstage Window today. And yeah, bye guys.
Make it a great day.
Yeah, make it a great day. All right.